Hey everyone, this is Ben Carmichael with New England on the Fly. I'm here today to talk to you about RIO's new in-touch single-hand Spey line, the 3D. Before we get into talking about what 3D means, I want to talk a little bit about spey casting and a little bit about spey lines. So often when I'm asked about spey casting, something that I've been doing for a number of years now, people are asking about rods. What's your favorite spey rod? Now that's something that you definitely want to be comfortable with. You want to find a rod that fits you, it's the right length, you like the handle, you like the feel. You've got to be confident in your rod, there's no doubt about that. But so often people miss the question of what's a really good line? And they also don't ask the question of how can I spey cast with a single hand rod? They think of it as a double hand freshwater technique only. And actually spey casting is something that you can do in saltwater. It's also a really effective technique to use when you're single hand casting. Think about any time, and we've all been there, where you're tight to a bank, you've got bushes behind you, you've got a big rock behind you, and you just can't throw an overhand cast. You need to be able to roll cast, which can help you in some situations, or even better yet, to spey cast. This RIO new single hand spey line is, I will say, without question, the single best line I have ever used for Atlantic salmon. I am now going to use nothing but this line, and I mean that for principally wet flies, although often in circumstances when I go salmon fishing up in Canada, you'll be using dry flies. I've also used this line successfully with dry fly fishing. So let's talk a little bit more about what this line is. What's the 3D stand for? 3D stands for triple density, or they call it a multi-density coating. So often when you think about lines, we think about lines that are floating, sinking, or intermediate. And they're just pretty much standard all the way through, from the running line all the way to the tip, unless you have a loop-to-loop connection that connects another line to it. This actually has an integrated tip series that goes from floating to what they call hover, which is sort of like an intermediate sink, or a real slow sink, to an intermediate tip at the front. It's not something that you notice right away. The first, given is such a slow sink, it's sort of right up on the surface early on, and then through the swing it starts to sink a little bit more for you. I found that it put the fly just a little bit down, maybe a foot or so, right in the salmon's wheelhouse. On this last trip to the Gas Bay, I hooked 8 Atlantic salmon. That was over 9 days of fishing, so just about a fish a day. Just on the sort of tail end of the peak time. So for those who have gone Atlantic salmon fishing, you know that a week with maybe 3 fish could be a good week. 8 hookups was really great, and I really credit this line in part for getting the fly down into the zone. The other part about it that I loved is with this switch to double-handed spey rods, which can really come in handy if you're trying to cover big water, or you've got maybe a tough shoulder or something like that. You miss a lot of the feel. You don't feel the fish take as much, so you catch a grilse. You miss a lot of the sort of fight. You don't have that vital connection to the salmon in the same way. So switching back to a single hand rod, you really feel the take. You feel the full fight. And you really feel like it's a fight, not a foregone conclusion, which so often it feels like with a big, say, 13, 14 foot double-handed rod. I just love the motion of it, throwing sort of really tight loops with a single-hand spey rod. You just sort of fall into this rhythm. I'm so in love with that motion, and this is, without question, the single best line that I've ever used single-hand spey casting. It's got a nice color to it. I don't know if you can see that here. Some lines really stand out. They've got a bright color to it, or you've got a really bright running line. I don't know, and we'll never know if that scares a fish necessarily, to have a bright orange or a bright red or something like that. This has a real sort of peach green, blue color to it. I think they call it camo, peach camo and stuff like that. Whatever you want to call it, I was not at all concerned about it scaring off fish. It looks natural, it floats really nice. You can mend all the way through. There's just incredible line control. The RIO line, it has their connect core system, so you're going to feel the fish fight and take. So if you're thinking about getting into spey casting and you're intimidated by some of those double-handed rods, maybe pick this up. You don't have to get a new rod. I was using 8-weight single-handed rod that I've used overhand casting a lot. This worked perfectly with this. And I also should say, you know, given it's a 30-foot, I think, taper in the front, throws overhand loops really nicely too. So it's a really versatile line. You don't have to feel like it's a really tight Skagit head and you're going to be slapping the surface or anything like that. Casts really smoothly for Atlantic salmon, and I know some people have used it trout fishing as well, say on like a 3-weight or something, and it's a nice line for that. But as I said, it's now my absolute go-to line for Atlantic salmon. I joked with a friend of mine that I've now purchased 4 of these, which I have, because I'm afraid that they're going to run out or not produce them again. I'm just stacking them up so I can use them in the years to come. So anyway, that's the RIO In Touch Single-Handed Spey Line 3D. Make sure you get the 3D right there. If you're going Atlantic salmon fishing, highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.